Hello, Facebook. Hello, Instagram. Good morning. Good morning. It is Marcus, your chef on a mission from Aromatime Bistro in Ellenville. Let's see. I'm going to talk about farmed salmon today, specifically Faroe Island salmon. A lot of people ask me on Faroe Island salmon. A lot of restaurants serve Faroe Island salmon. Faroe Island is an island north of Scotland. That if you go onto the Faroe Island Coalition, Salmon Farming Coalition, you will see this beautiful website of how fish is raised in the nature, and they have this great marketing campaign that makes chefs feel comfortable to serve Faroe Island salmon. And Faroe Island salmon is very prevalent in here in the Hudson Valley, especially in the local store, Restaurant Depot, also known as Restaurant Cheapo. Excuse me. So, Restaurant Depot, a store that's notoriously known to serve very low quality foods. Chefs love it because they have to save a lot of money when they go there and buy stuff that has really far less care for the environment, for the health, and everything. So, I'm not saying that Restaurant Depot doesn't have anything good. There are some few things in Restaurant Depot. I go there maybe once a month and buy dish chemicals, Dawn detergent because it's biodegradable and it's for my green certification. And there might be a couple paper products in there that are good. They do have organic agave. I want to do a video there one time of me walking through and reading labels and showing everybody how food is just manipulated there through the shelves. But this is any food distributor across the country, or most food distributors like Cisco and all those big guys that are just selling amazingly cheap food. But Faroe Island salmon is very popular there. They have put it into the freezers and made it at a so-called affordable price, affordable price. But I want to talk about the real rundown on Faroe Island salmon today. Faroe Island salmon, folks, is farmed salmon. It's net raised salmon out in bays, out in the ocean. It applies to everything else that other farmed salmon has issues with. Everything. But when you go into the farmed salmon, the Faroe Island Coalition site, their association site, and you see the farmed salmon in the Faroe Islands, they paint a very, very different picture. A very, very different picture. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people buy into that. They don't do any research. They do zero research. Chefs do zero research. Then they tell people, oh, the Faroe Islands is clean, it's pristine. Folks, Faroe Islands was a dumping ground for toxic chemicals after World War II. Because it was so pristine and out of the way, they just went up there and threw all that stuff into the ocean, and there you go. So the stuff is in the ocean. But that goes far beyond, Faroe Islands farm salmon goes far beyond that. There's no right way to do the wrong thing when it comes to farmed salmon, open pen farmed salmon. So I just went on and did a quick little search here online, Faroe Island salmon. Didn't even put Faroe Island salmon dangers. I just typed in Faroe Island salmon and I hit the news button on Google or DuckDuckGo on my browser, and up comes the most current articles that are saying what's wrong, not what's right, what's wrong with Faroe Island salmon. So I found this article here. Farmed salmon linked to cancer chemicals. This is a 4-day-old article from the dailymail.co.uk. Farmed salmon linked to cancer-causing chemicals. The Food Standard Agency has urged people to keep eating farmed salmon after a scientific report claimed it is so full of pollutant chemicals it should only be eaten a maximum of 3 times a year. 3 times a year. The Food Standards Agency is the equivalent of the FDA in the UK. Probably just as worthless, and probably just filled with just as much scandals and special interest money and things like that. So that's the situation. The Food Standards Act. So the Food Standards Agency has urged people to keep eating Scottish farmed salmon after a scientific report claimed it is so full of pollutants it should only be eaten a maximum of 3 times a year. You see how this contradicts? Here's the real science. So the science that is just presented in the scientific study is not the science that promotes big business. It's not the science for profit that Scottish salmon or Faroe Island salmon. I mentioned Scottish Island, but they're going to get involved in Faroe Island in this article. I'm going to read a couple parts of this article for you. And it's not the science that promotes profits. So they subdue this science. And this is something done with the FDA and all these agencies, wherever they are, they typically have a board members that are made up of industry people that need to protect their profits. I've told this story many times. Years and years and years ago, 20 plus years ago, I was nominated for the Organic Standards Board. I had some people nominate me in Colorado for all the work I was doing. And I was also told at the same time, it's nice to get nominated for these boards, but you don't have special interest money that they want. You're not from Tyson Chicken. Tyson Chicken needs to get on that board so they can make organic chicken at the very low cost and at a very high volume. And you're a chef who understands purity in food. Tyson doesn't understand purity in food, or Purdue, or whoever it is. Those big companies don't understand purity. They just understand that they need to make organic food. They need to get into the game, and they're going to manipulate the guidelines so they can get into the game. So that's how that works. So whether it's the FDA or Food Standards Agency of the UK, you got to take it with a grain of salt. So the levels of 14 toxins were significantly higher in both European and North American farm-raised fish versus the counterpart wild salmon, okay? So the level of 14 toxins, whether it's any farm anywhere, North America or Europe, were higher in 14 levels of toxins versus wild salmon. The pollutants, which come under the banner of organochlorines, included chemicals which persist in the environment, are also potential cancer triggers. Folks, you are what you eat. I've said this many times. You are what you eat. So, let's see. Am I on Facebook, folks? Am I live on Facebook? I got a couple comments there. Okay, good. I am live on Facebook. Jamie just messaged me and said you're not live on Facebook, but she commented on Facebook. Okay, so good. All right, so these are potential cancer triggers. Folks, you are what you eat. Eating food is the most intimate thing you're ever going to do. What you eat assimilates into your body, becomes your cells, becomes your blood. It becomes you. And if you're eating farmed fish, farmed salmon, especially Faroe Island salmon and Scottish salmon, the two worst salmons out there, potentially the worst salmons out there, you're absorbing all this stuff into your body, into your bloodstream, into you. And then we wonder why our cancer rates are so high, because we're eating stuff like this that an agency is telling us is okay to eat. The hard scientific, real science is telling us not to eat it. It's linking it to cancer. But then we're eating French fries that are in bad oil. We're eating all these things that are just totally manipulated and altered and not good for our health. Then we wonder why, our cancer rates are up. But so-and-so ate healthy. They were eating chicken and salmon, and the chicken was full of, when I tell you the chicken's full of all this crap and the salmon's full of all this crap, people think, oh, but salmon and chicken are so healthy. Folks, you've got to eat the right choices in these categories. You've got to do research, because let me tell you something. The FDA is not doing the research for you. They're supposed to be, but they're not here to protect you. They're here to protect corporate profits. Same thing with this Food Standards Agency, to have a study come out, and the Food Standards Agency said, just keep eating it. Just keep eating it. This is the reality of this. So, folks, we're talking about Faroe Island salmon if you're just tuning in. If you're tuning in live, by the way, drop a comment, #live. It's on the replay, #replay. This will probably also go on our podcast channel on YouTube. I'm going live right now on Instagram and Facebook, so thank you everybody for tuning in. Just drop some comments. Let me know where you're coming in from. Okay. The researchers recommended that only a half to one meal, defined as 8 ounces of uncooked farm salmon bought in supermarkets, should be eaten a month. So a half a portion per month of farm salmon. That was the maximum amount that could be consumed before boasting the risk of cancer by at least one case in 100,000. The same guidance came from the studies in Frankfurt, Paris, Oslo, Boston, San Francisco, and Toronto. So this is all across the globe. But the most contaminated fish came from Scotland and the Faroe Islands. For these, the monthly limit was a mere quarter of a serving, which equals 3 servings a year. So their safety guidelines in this study is saying no more than 3 times a year you should be eating Scottish farm salmon or Faroe Island salmon. 3 times a year. That's it. That's the threshold. Three portions a year of farmed salmon from the Faroe Islands. So all these chefs that are telling you that Faroe Islands is fine, it's clean, it's pristine, they're not doing their research. This stuff is in plain day on the internet. You can go through, you can trace all the sourcing back. Folks, it's farm salmon. Farm salmon comes with lots of consequences, environmental consequences, massive environmental consequences, your health consequences, animal welfare consequences. Farms, there's no right way to do the wrong thing. You cannot take 50,000, 100,000 fish, 200,000 fish and throw them in a pen in the bay of an ocean and claim that it's organic and claim that it's better. And it's just what it is. But they're protecting their corporate profits, and they're infiltrated the organizations, the agencies, to protect their corporate profits. But the Food Safety Standards Agency pointed out that these dioxins are well within levels to live a healthy life. Is what they followed up with saying. So this is not the only study out there that talks about this. This is not the only study at all that talks about this. Folks, you are what you eat. If you're going to eat salmon, eat wild salmon. And still there's levels on wild salmon too. They're saying, I just read something that says 8 portions a month of wild salmon is really the threshold. And the bottom line is our whole environment is polluted because of what we've done to our environment. There are better choices. There's some great choices and there are some better choices, but in certain categories, it's really tough to say, well, this is truly healthy. No, it's a better choice than what we have. And if you go through the seafood agencies, like Monterey Bay Aquarium, which I think is a little wrong on for certain other things, but I've actually had conversations with them. Marine Stewardship Council, fish has to be raised in water somewhere, whether it's in the wild or whether it's in toxic farms. Now, some farmed fish is actually better, and I talked about that yesterday very briefly. Certain fish are better, or certain items are better, like mussels come from. I would actually prefer farmed mussels as opposed to cultivated mussels, farmed mussels as opposed to wild mussels. So there are certain things you can't take this blanket of farmed fish is bad across the board. There are certain industries, not many, that have perfected it. So and say, okay, this is now better than the wild. So, it's just like any other salmon. Scottish salmon is the worst out there. Scottish Island and Faroe Island. There's some really great stuff. If you ever want to find out truly what's going on at a salmon farm, if a salmon farm is good, you go on the internet, you go on YouTube, and you find people that live near these salmon farms, people that actually live in the communities. They're living the nightmares firsthand. They see the salmon getting extracted from the nets, the dead salmon. They see the mort bins, the mortality bins, being filled up with dead fish that are dying in the farms all the time. Scottish salmon has the highest mortality rate of any farm salmon out there, and Faroe Islands is not far behind. The Scottish salmon, 22 out of every 100 fish die because of disease. That's what they lose. 22 out of every 100 fish perish in the Scottish salmon farms because of how toxic the environment is, how sick the fish get. So Scottish farm salmon leads that. That's one of their stats. They can actually say we're the leaders in the industry of mortalities, which is not something you want to say, but that's one of their stats. So 22 out of every 100 fish. You talk to the people who live in these communities that smell the bays, that smell the rotten stench, that see the fish getting extracted and put in the mortality bins, and they see the trucks pull down the road with dead, rotten fish. It's an eye opener. But these people live with this. They wake up in the morning, and what you would smell like a sewer plant is in their ocean. It's in their ocean right outside their door. It's in their community. It's in their bay. In the summertime when this happens, all that oil from the fish, that these fish that die, and this happens anywhere, it coats the rocks and everything on the bay. It comes with a film and it coats, and it's like this greasy fat that has this stench on it. And these people live there. But then you turn around and go to their websites, and they're promoting the best salmon ever, the best farm salmon ever. Oh, we make organic Scottish salmon. We do this. Faroe Islands, raised in pristine nature, and screwing it up for everybody else is what they should be saying on their website for truth and marketing. Raised in the pristine and screwing it up for everybody else there. Folks, this is in Canada. This is in Scotland. This is anywhere they do farm salmon. You will talk to the locals in these communities, and they will tell you the real truth of what's going on. So go online, do a little bit of research. If somebody tells you, do a little bit of research for yourself. The stuff is there. It's in front of you. Videos don't lie. These people are making these videos on their phones and post them onto YouTube. And no matter what it is, Loch Duhart salmon has gone on a lot of scrutiny because Loch Duhart makes claims the most sustainable salmon. They put it right on their website, the most sustainable salmon. And there's people that are filming Loch Duhart extracting dead fish. I mean, thousands and thousands of whole dead fish out of the ocean and hauling it off. They're there, they're recording it. They're seeing it happen in front of their eyes. They're living these disasters. So Faroe Island salmon, no to Faroe Island salmon. If anybody's watching this and you have some chef that's told you Faroe Island salmon is good for you, they're misled and they're misleading you. Okay, a lot of chefs know, they flat out know that farm salmon is not good for you. They flat out know this. It's no secret, but they're going to find the better salmon, like Faroe Island salmon, and say, oh, well, you know, if you go to their website, it doesn't say anything bad. None of their websites say anything bad. None of their websites say anything bad about these fish, about these farms. But Faroe Island seems to be like some magical place, right? So they'll take these things, or Loch Duhart, the most sustainable, or we have organic salmon. Folks, when you see organic salmon, it's most likely organic Scottish salmon. Scotland knows their salmon industry is so atrocious that they've had to turn things around by throwing up a fake organic label that's self-regulated. They think that they're pulling one over on people. Oh, well, we do something better. Folks, there's no right way to do the wrong thing. Alexandra Morton says that. She's a marine biologist in the British Columbia. She has seen salmon farms destroy British Columbia. Not only destroy the salmon population, pollute the bays, and the bears go hungry in the fall time because salmon farms are stuck in, most salmon farms, except when you're getting down south in the Tasmania and Australia and stuff, because salmon's not from the southern hemisphere, it's from the northern hemisphere. So they take the salmon farms and they plop them right in the migratory path of the wild salmon. So you have all this disease, this lice, this feces, it just oozes out into the community. Now these dead fish, all this decomposition just oozes out into the environment there. And the real salmon, the real wild salmon are now fighting against all this waste. So every time a chef serves farmed salmon, they're actually destroying the wild salmon. Every time we eat and support farmed salmon, we are causing the detriment of wild salmon, not knowingly, but this is the reality. And if you do if these chefs did any kind of research, they would see this. They would totally see this. So the baby salmon spawn, they swim down the stream, and they swim right past the salmon farm. In some cases, the holes in the salmon farm are big. So in some cases, they can just go right on through, either get eaten up or sea lice attached to them. And the sea lice are in the bay. They're not just contained to the salmon farm because it's an open pen. So anything that's in these nets will go into the wild. You poor little baby salmon swim past, and they get sea lice attached to them. Once sea lice attach to a baby salmon like that, a baby salmon, the salmon is history. The salmon has no shot. The salmon is a 100% dead, the wild salmon, because some greedy corporation put a salmon farm in this bay in the migratory path. Alexandra Morton saw this happen in the late 80s in British Columbia. She's been on our YouTube channel many times. She put her hands up and says, stop, you can't do this. This is madness. What are you people doing? This was before it was really prevalent of what these salmon farms are doing. But she knew, as a marine biologist, you can't do this. But again, these agencies, whether they're Canadian or Scottish or whatever they're from, or the U.S., they're so in tune to corporate profits that they don't care about that other kind of stuff. They just don't care whatsoever. So she's watched since the late 80s orca whales disappear in British Columbia, farms, wild salmon disappear. The natives, the people who have the rights there, the indigenous people there, their fishing industry is gone. Bears that sit there in the fall time for the salmon that go upstream that catch them, the vital source of food. The salmon aren't doing the salmon runs because there's not as many salmon to do that. You go 1,000 miles up to to Alaska, where there's no farmed salmon. Salmon is flourishing in Alaska because there's no farmed salmon in Alaska to sit in the way. Washington State has now banned new farms, and when a farm's lease is up, they're no longer renewing their leases because so these salmon also escape into the wild by the thousands, 50,000s, whatever it is, 100,000. The whole salmon farm will just escape into the wild. They can't reproduce because they're not genetically uh, the genetics of these fish, they can't go into the wild and reproduce because they're farm salmon. They're altered. All right, they're not genetically modified, but now they do have genetically modified salmon that are in the market. But these fish are altered. They're bred, so they're not supposed to be reproducing. But they go out there, they compete for the same food as the wild fish, and then they can't reproduce, and then they go out and spread their diseases. So any farm salmon, folks, net pen farm salmon, it's a disaster. Faroe Islands, Scotland, Norwegian. And if somebody tells you if they have wild Scottish or wild Norwegian, that's a lie. That is a lie unless you're paying $50 a pound for the stuff. Whole fish, that is a lie. There is no such thing as commercially available Scottish, Norwegian salmon at the price tag that any restaurant would pay for. It just does not exist. That fish is left for royalties. Alistair, from one of the most prestigious fish markets or fish vendors there in the UK. I spoke to him a couple years ago. We did a little interview. We had fun. He filled me in a lot of things. He said, true wild salmon from Scotland, which is very, very, very rare. True wild salmon from Norway, which is very, 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 very rare, is left for royalty. That's how much it costs. He goes, he gets, 1 year I spoke to him 3 years ago. They got 4 fish. He goes, I got 4 fish. That's it. 4 fish. So a restaurant's not getting wild Scottish salmon or wild Faroe Island salmon or wild Norwegian salmon because it exists in the ocean. It's out in the ocean, but there's just not enough to catch and make a viable industry out of it. Those are not going to a restaurant where you're paying $15, $25, $35, or even $45 for a salmon dish. It's just the economics are not there. The restaurant would go broke. So don't let a restaurant pull that one over on you either. Folks, thanks for tuning in. I got to run. If you like this, please share it. Please comment. Please tell a chef that's serving Faroe Island salmon to source more responsibly, or Scottish salmon, or any farm salmon. The more of you that speak up, the better off we are. Tell chefs, tell restaurant owners, we don't want this toxic food. If you had a truly a better option, I would have ordered your salmon tonight. But I feel, and so does the whole scientific community, that farm salmon is a detriment to the environment and to my health, and it's not fair because we're now taking away from the wild salmon at the same time. So you're killing 2 fish. 1 fish, 2 fish. So you're killing 2 fish for every fish we eat. And a lot of these salmon, you're saving wild salmon because they're not catching it anymore. Well, we know that's totally false as well. So don't let them lie to you. It's marketing. It's marketing. Amazing day, and we'll talk to you later.